Microsoft gets a lot of hate, and some of it is warranted, and sometimes it's not warranted. This is one of those times where I feel like people are running with something because it's a slightly slower time for gaming news. Now, what is this going to mean long term for Xbox? I don't know, but when you have me out there kind of going, this is strange and this is like unnecessary, I think that it's time that people kind of wake up and understand where I'm coming from with this. This is just some of the most ridiculous stuff I've seen, and you can only take so much ridiculousness. I just got to be honest. You can only take so much. It's and you start to lose that little bit of sanity that you have in the back of your brain, and that's exactly what's happening to me right now. So I wanted to get into it because I did find this to be incredibly. I don't want to just say condescending, but I just find it to be incredibly nonsensical. And the people that are kind of running with this narrative, honestly, they don't know what they're talking about. And I think that's probably, yes, do I always know what I'm talking about? No. But in this case, there's plenty of evidence and there's plenty of articles and there's plenty of facts to be had. I'm not sure why people are going with, their feelings or whatever in terms of what's happening with Xbox versus PlayStation or whatever. I think people just look for random reasons to kind of dog on Xbox, and I don't understand it in this particular instance. I do want to get into it though because I find it to be a very, very interesting topic, and I had a lot to cover in it. So let's go ahead and get started. So the other day, this game is a 6-year game. It's called Fury, and they announced that they're going to do DLC, and they snub Xbox. So this small indie developer called the Game Bakers announced surprise new DLC drop for intense action game Fury 6 years after the game first released. But the bad news is that it's set to come to every platform except Xbox later this month. The Fury devs actually took to Twitter to explain why the new DLC is skipping Xbox, citing limited resources of the small indie team and the fact that it never captured a lot of attention on Xbox. So the unexpected new DLC drop for Fury will come alongside a new free-gen upgrade for owners of the PS4 version, and will even let them carry their saves across to a shiny new PS5 release, which, to add insult to injury, will come with a stack of new trophies, just like all PS5 upgrades do, while Xbox owners simply won't be getting DLC upgrades or the upgrade in general. So what's interesting is here, this is what the Game Bakers actually had to say. They say, "We have heard all of you who played Fury on Xbox, and we understand your frustration. We're a small indie team, and we couldn't find the time and budget to make the port." Okay, that sounds fair enough, But then they replied to that with this. "Fury never captured a lot of attention on Xbox, and unfortunately we had to prioritize platforms. We hope to be developing for Xbox again in the future. Thank you for supporting our games." Again, the Game Breakers told Gamatsu that there are no plans for an Xbox release or the next-gen upgrade. Again, it's a stylish action game that, some people might want to play it or whatever, but for me, I find this to be a very interesting subject for a couple of reasons. For one reason, you had some people who are, I don't want to say they lean PlayStation per se, but I just think that, in this particular instance, I saw a lot of people kind of pushing this as a narrative as to why Game Pass sucks, or if you put your games into Game Pass, people won't buy it. Like Imran Khan said, he actually quoted the Game Baker's tweet and said, "This is not an uncommon refrain. I wonder if Xbox is becoming a console where if you're not on Game Pass, there's just little chance of gaining any traction." Now, of course, this is going to set off all the fanboys who are going to run with it. The problem with this is this game released prior to Game Pass even being a thing, well in advance, and multiple years before Microsoft started putting their first party in their day and date, and even longer to where Game Pass was looked at as like a thing that people could actually get into. So, Game Pass had absolutely nothing to do with this game not selling well. We have to look at 2016 at a time where Xbox was in general not selling well, and I think that probably hampered more than anything. But you also have to look at things that this game Fury was released on PlayStation Plus as a free game back then on the PS4 as well. And that was at a time when Sony had indie developers pretty much on lock. It launched actually first on PlayStation. It didn't in the summer, which is kind of a peak time, versus winter time on Xbox. So it didn't even launch at the same time. So I don't really understand what some of these people are kind of coming up with to try to claim that this thing is not good. You know, I was talking with people, not arguing, because I'm done with the whole arguing stuff, right? Just to be honest. You know, arguing with people over video games just honestly doesn't make any sense. And a lot of people don't want to stick to the facts. People are like, well, you know, indie devs, they don't like Xbox, blah blah blah. Nobody's holding a gun to these developers' heads to put their games on Game Pass. It's been proven that indie games, most of all, actually sell better from being a Game Pass, because you know how many indie games released, right? And this is such a shocking thing. Almost weekly, there's indie games out there that get released, and most of them on PlayStation and Xbox go unnoticed. And I find it a little bit ironic that games that are going into Game Pass, they get royalties. Microsoft has paid over $2.5 billion in royalties to small indie game developers alone. That's not counting the big AAAs or anything like that. I'm talking indie developers alone have earned over $2.5 billion in royalties. That's an incredible sum. They're getting paid. They get paid to put their games in there. Also, it works as viral marketing. What I mean by that is somebody goes, "Oh, well, have you heard Tunic?" Who would have heard of Tunic if it hadn't have been in Game Pass, right? Like, I'm just being honest. I'm not saying that no indie game can take off or be successful without Game Pass, because you do see some of that. Sometimes really great games will find success regardless. But even this Fury game released in PlayStation Plus. And I think that people are really kind of running with this false narrative that anything on Xbox isn't going to sell. And that's really just kind of an ignorant take, in my opinion. For the most part, what I've seen or what I've noticed is the people that are going to wait and see probably weren't going to buy a game anyway, but maybe will try it if it's in Game Pass, which means developers are going to get paid for it. So to me, I don't really necessarily understand the issue or why people are kind of upset about this situation, or pretend that, you know, oh, well, it's all because of Game Pass, especially, you know, when it really indicates that Game Pass wasn't even around at this particular time. So it's kind of a really apples to oranges situation. But I also kind of want to point out that, you know, for me personally anyway, it's a little bit weird, because it just goes to show how quick people are to want to talk bad about Xbox and Game Pass. And I was there. Like, listen, I understand the fear for Game Pass. How long can Microsoft do this? How are they able to provide such value with Game Pass? Will it turn the industry upside down? Will it hurt game developers? Will people still want to buy games? Like, I had all these fears myself, right? How can they do? Like, mostly you just are like, well, how can they do? And then you kind of put your finger down or whatever, because you know what? I don't care how they do it. They're a $1 trillion company. It's not up to me to pocket watch for these companies and go, you know what? Listen, you know, how are they going to be able to keep doing this? I personally do not care. I don't care how they do it. You know, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying gaming. And that's all there is to it. I don't want to, you know, get all caught up in the nonsense, to be honest. I don't. And you know what? That's just one of the things that I kind of wanted to get across, that people need to realize. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous. There's so many different things to debunk this. You can look up, even on, you know, Google it, the Descenders developer. His game sold quadruple the amount because it was in Game Pass. Also, PlayStation indie devs were complaining just last year that they were having a hard time with PlayStation because they, you know, Sony charges an absorbent amount of fee to get seen, and some people couldn't even locate these small indie games on PlayStation in the store. Like, you know, there's problems all around. It's not just an Xbox thing. It's not just a PlayStation thing. I think people are just looking for, you know, a reason to hate on Xbox and Game Pass. And, you know, it's just kind of frustrating at times. And I do hope that we see some changes before too long, because I honestly think that Game Pass is a good thing, but you can still buy your games, right? But it's helping indie developers get seen and their games get known. So, like, to me, I don't understand where a lot of this is coming from. But I will link this article, and you guys can check it out in the description below. What's your guys' take on this? How do you feel about it? Let me know what you think. Sound off, rate, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Rack 'em up, fact 'em up, crap gamer 'em up. Crap gamer out.